Have you ever shared something you were excited about and felt it weaken the moment you said out loud? A new plan, a new boundary, a new version of yourself you were quietly becoming. At first, it felt strong inside you, clear, grounded, real. But after explaining it to someone, after hearing their reaction, their opinion, their doubt, something shifted. The energy dropped, the certainty blurred, and what once felt solid began to feel fragile. Why does that happen? Why do some ideas feel powerful in private, but unstable in public? Carl Jung understood that psychological transformation begins in the unconscious. Before something becomes stable in your outer life, it exists as a subtle internal shift. And subtle shifts are sensitive. They are not ready for exposure. When you speak about something that is still forming, you introduce it to other people's projections, their fears, their skepticism, their expectations. Even their enthusiasm can distort it. Imagine you decide to change careers. You've been thinking about it for months, quietly reflecting, feeling misaligned in your current path, slowly recognizing that something else feels more true. The decision begins as a whisper. It feels personal, intimate, almost sacred. Then you tell someone, they say, "Are you sure? That's risky." Or they say, "That's amazing. You're so brave." Both reactions can destabilize you. Doubt makes you question yourself prematurely. Praise makes you feel pressure to succeed. And suddenly, the quiet clarity you had becomes externalized. Now the decision is not just yours. It belongs to the narrative others have created around it. That is why some inner truths lose power when shared too early, because they are no longer protected. There is a psychological stage between insight and embodiment. During that stage, your new direction is fragile. It has not yet survived challenge. It has not yet been tested through behavior. It is still an idea becoming identity. And identity needs containment before exposure. Containment does not mean secrecy from fear. It means incubation. Think of a seed. If you dig it up every day to check if it's growing, you interrupt its development. Inner shifts work the same way. When you repeatedly expose them to external evaluation, you disturb their rooting process. Let's bring this into daily life. You decide you're going to stop tolerating disrespect. You feel it deeply. You are done shrinking yourself. But instead of quietly practicing new boundaries, you announce it to everyone. "I'm not accepting this anymore." Now, when you encounter discomfort, you are not only managing the situation, you are managing your image. You feel pressure to prove that you are different now. And pressure creates anxiety. Anxiety weakens clarity. But if you had simply begun responding differently, calmly, without explanation, your boundary would grow stronger with each silent reinforcement. Another example, you decide to work on your health. Instead of changing quietly, you tell everyone your new routine. Now, people ask about it constantly. How's the diet? Are you still working out? Their questions shift your focus from internal discipline to external accountability. Accountability can be useful in some cases, but when transformation is deeply personal, too much exposure too early can make it feel performative. You begin acting to maintain the image of change instead of honoring the process of change. Jung emphasized the importance of individuation, becoming who you truly are beneath social masks. But individuation often requires stepping away from constant external feedback, because feedback reinforces persona. And during early transformation, the persona is exactly what is being restructured. There are truths that are not meant to be debated while they are forming. There are boundaries that are not meant to be explained repeatedly. There are insights that are not meant to be validated by others before you validate them yourself. When you share too early, you risk outsourcing authority. Instead of asking, "Does this feel aligned?" you begin asking, "Does this make sense to them?" That subtle shift weakens your inner center. If your decision only survives when others agree, it is not fully integrated. If your insight collapses under mild criticism, it needs more time in private. This does not mean you never share. It means timing matters. There is a phase where silence is strength, a phase where protecting your inner truth is more important than expressing it. Think about how often people announce goals that they never complete. They feel motivated. They speak about it publicly. They receive praise, and the praise gives them a premature sense of accomplishment. But the internal work has barely begun. The energy dissipates. Because speaking about change can create the illusion of progress. Real progress is behavioral. It happens in moments no one sees. When you resist the old habit quietly, when you choose differently without explanation, when you sit with discomfort instead of seeking reassurance. Some truths need to mature before they can withstand outside influence. If you are in a season of transformation, ask yourself, is this insight strong enough to survive misunderstanding? If someone disagreed, would I still stand in it? If no one supported me, would I continue? If the answer is uncertain, that is not weakness. It simply means the truth is still forming. And forming requires protection. There is power in keeping certain things sacred, not hidden from fear, but guarded until they are stable enough to stand on their own. Some inner shifts are like foundations being poured. They must harden before weight is placed on them. If you expose them too early, you create cracks. This is why psychological maturity often looks quieter than self-development culture suggests. It is less about announcing who you are becoming, and more about becoming it before you speak. Your inner truth does not need immediate witnesses. It needs space. It needs patience. It needs repetition. And when it becomes strong enough, it will no longer feel fragile. You will not feel the urge to defend it. You will not feel the need to explain it. You will simply live it. But until then, silence may be the most powerful protection you have. There is a subtle shift that happens the moment you speak a fragile truth out loud. It stops being purely yours. And once it stops being purely yours, it becomes vulnerable to distortion. Carl Jung spoke about projection, the tendency for others to unconsciously project their fears, desires, and unresolved issues onto you. When you share something that is still forming, you invite projection into something that does not yet have roots. And projection is powerful. Imagine you quietly realize that a relationship in your life is no longer aligned. You haven't decided what to do yet. You are simply becoming aware of the truth. Then you share it with someone. They immediately project their story onto yours. Maybe you're just afraid of commitment. Relationships are always hard. You need to try harder. You're overthinking it. Or on the opposite extreme, you deserve better. You should leave immediately. Now your internal reflection becomes external noise. Instead of sitting with your own clarity, you begin defending it, or doubting it, or rushing it. That rush interrupts integration. There is something psychologically important about allowing a truth to exist without defending it. Defense implies instability. If your inner realization requires constant explanation, it is still fragile. And fragility is not shameful. It simply means it needs time. Think about how often people share new spiritual insights or personal breakthroughs online. At first, the energy feels high. They feel awakened, clear, different. But the more they talk about it, the more they feel pressure to embody it perfectly. If they slip, they feel exposed. If they change their mind, they feel embarrassed. So they cling harder to the narrative. The narrative becomes more important than the transformation itself. This is one of the dangers of premature exposure. You become loyal to the story instead of loyal to the truth. The truth may evolve. The story resists evolution. Jung believed that individuation requires confronting the shadow, the parts of you that are uncomfortable, inconsistent, contradictory. But if you publicly define who you are becoming too early, you create a persona around your transformation. Now you must maintain it. And maintenance drains energy. Let's bring this into everyday situations. You decide you're going to stop oversharing. Ironically, you announce it. I'm keeping things more private now. From that moment, you are aware of how others perceive your privacy. If you share something personal later, you feel inconsistent. If you stay silent, you feel watched. Your focus shifts from authenticity to image management. But if you simply reduce what you share, without explaining, the change feels natural. No one expects consistency from you. You are not performing restraint. You are practicing it. Another example, you decide to start a creative project. Instead of working quietly, you tell everyone. You describe your vision in detail. People react. Some are supportive, some skeptical. Suddenly, You feel pressure to deliver quickly. You feel observed. And observation changes behavior. Instead of experimenting freely, you begin thinking about how it will be received. Creativity shrinks under premature evaluation. The same is true for psychological growth. Evaluation too early can shrink courage. There is also an internal dynamic at play. When you share a fragile truth, you unconsciously seek reassurance. If reassurance is not given, doubt increases. If reassurance is given, dependency can form. In both cases, your internal authority weakens. Internal authority strengthens when decisions are made without constant external confirmation. Ask yourself, if no one agreed with this realization, would I still honor it? If no one applauded this boundary, would I still enforce it? If no one validated this new direction, would I still pursue it? If the answer depends on others, the truth needs more solitude. Solitude is not isolation. It is containment. Containment builds resilience. When a truth survives private testing, it becomes grounded. You encounter doubt internally and sit with it. You encounter fear and tolerate it. You encounter uncertainty and reflect instead of reacting. This strengthens the foundation. But when you expose something prematurely, you skip the strengthening phase. You outsource the testing process to others. And others do not test gently. They test through opinion. Opinion is not always aligned with your development. Jung emphasized that the individuation journey is deeply personal. It cannot be lived according to collective expectations. When you expose your transformation too early, you invite collective standards into something that is uniquely yours. That can distort direction. For example, you decide to pursue a simpler lifestyle. You share it publicly. Now simplicity becomes aesthetic. Minimalism becomes image. Instead of feeling grounded, you feel pressure to appear consistent. The original insight, I want less noise in my life, becomes performance. Performance dilutes purity. Silence protects purity. There is also emotional energy involved. Every time you explain a forming truth, you expend energy. Energy that could have been used to stabilize the behavior is redirected toward conversation, toward clarification, toward justification. Over time, the idea feels drained. You mistake that drain for loss of passion, but it may simply be overexposure. Some things lose power not because they were wrong, but because they were exposed before they were strong. If you are in a season of interchange, notice your impulse to share. Is it coming from clarity or from anxiety? Sometimes we speak because silence feels uncomfortable. We want someone to confirm we are not crazy. We want someone to say, that makes sense. But learning to tolerate not being immediately understood builds depth. Depth does not require immediate consensus. It requires internal coherence. Before you share something significant, pause. Ask, has this truth survived my own doubt yet? Have I practiced it behaviorally? Can I hold it calmly without needing others to agree? If not, let it grow. Let it stabilize. Let it become part of your nervous system, not just your language. Some truths are meant to be lived before they are spoken, because once they are lived consistently, they no longer feel fragile. They no longer depend on reaction. They stand quietly. And quiet strength is far more stable than loud declaration. There comes a moment in growth when you realize something subtle. You no longer feel the urge to explain yourself, not because you are hiding, not because you are secretive, but because your truth feels stable enough that it does not require witnesses. That stability is powerful. In the beginning of transformation, silence feels uncomfortable. You want to tell someone what you've realized. You want to describe the shift. You want confirmation that you're not overreacting, not imagining things, not being unreasonable. But the deeper you grow, the more you understand something important. Not everyone is meant to hold your unfinished truths. Carl Jung believed that individuation is a deeply personal journey. It cannot be validated by the collective. In fact, too much collective influence can interrupt it. When you keep certain things private, you create a container. Inside that container, your insight can mature. Let's make this real. Imagine you realize that you need stronger boundaries with a family member. In the past, you might have explained yourself endlessly. You might have shared your plan with friends. You might have rehearsed your speech. Now you choose differently. You simply begin responding differently. You shorten conversations. You decline invitations without over-explaining. You stop engaging in emotional drama. You do not announce, "I am setting boundaries now." You embody it. At first, people may notice. They may ask, "Is something wrong?" And instead of over-clarifying, you calmly say, "No, I'm just focusing on what feels right for me." That calmness signals integration. You are no longer seeking approval for your growth. You are living it. Privacy also builds resilience. When your truth is private, it survives doubt more effectively. If someone criticizes you, your direction does not collapse. If someone misunderstands you, your identity does not fragment, because you have already tested your truth internally. It has survived your own questions. It has survived your own fear. And because it survived internally, it is not threatened externally. There is also freedom in not explaining everything. You do not owe the world a live commentary of your development. You do not owe people access to every insight. You do not owe clarity to those who have not earned proximity. That does not mean isolation. It means discernment. Discernment is maturity. It is knowing that some ideas need time before they are introduced to external influence. It is knowing that not every realization needs immediate discussion. It is knowing that your inner life deserves protection. Let's explore another example. You decided to change your lifestyle in a significant way. Maybe you are simplifying. Maybe you are shifting careers. Maybe you are ending a long-term pattern. In the past, you might have made it public immediately. This time, you don't. You adjust quietly. You observe how it feels over weeks and months. You notice where resistance arises. You refine your direction. You correct mistakes privately. By the time others notice, the change is already integrated. You are not experimenting anymore. You are embodying. That embodiment carries weight. People sense the difference. You are less defensive, less reactive, less eager to convince. And that calm conviction is more persuasive than explanation ever was. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Becoming who you truly are is not a public performance. It is a private alignment. It is the gradual removal of masks. It is a slow stabilization of truth within your nervous system. When something is truly integrated, you do not feel fragile about it. You do not feel the need to argue. You do not feel compelled to announce. You simply act, and your actions speak consistently. Here is something practical you can apply. The next time you have a significant insight, pause before sharing it. Ask yourself, has this survived at least a few real-life tests? Have I acted on it consistently? Do I feel calm about it, or do I need reassurance? If you still need reassurance, give it time. Let the insight root deeper. Let behavior confirm it. Let repetition strengthen it. Then, if you choose to share, you will speak from stability instead of excitement. And stability is harder to shake. Some truths are meant to be spoken eventually, but they are meant to be lived first. When you live them, they stop feeling like fragile ideas. They become who you are. And once something becomes who you are, it no longer loses power when spoken, because its power does not come from reaction. It comes from alignment. Silence is not secrecy. It is protection. It is incubation. It is respect for the process of becoming. If you are in a season of transformation, consider giving yourself that protection. Not everything needs immediate exposure. Not everything needs commentary. Not everything needs validation. Some inner truths lose power when shared too early. But when protected, tested, and embodied quietly, they become unshakable. Not every truth needs immediate expression. Some truths need protection. In the early stages of transformation, your insight is fragile. It has not yet survived doubt, misunderstanding, or resistance. And when you expose it too soon, it becomes vulnerable to projection, opinion, and pressure. Carl Jung understood that individuation is an inner process before it becomes an outer reality. The shift must stabilize within you before it can withstand the world. If you share too early, you risk weakening what is still forming. You begin defending instead of developing, explaining instead of embodying, seeking reassurance instead of building internal authority. But when you allow a truth to mature privately, something different happens. You test it quietly. You live it consistently. You let behavior confirm it. And over time, it no longer feels fragile. It feels grounded. You no longer need validation. You no longer need agreement. You no longer feel urgency to announce it because it has become part of you. Privacy is not secrecy born from fear. It is containment born from wisdom. It is understanding that some insights need incubation before exposure. If you are in a season of interchange, consider protecting it. Let it root. Let it stabilize. Let it survive your own doubt before inviting the world into it. Some inner truths lose power when shared too early, but when guarded, tested, and embodied quietly, they become unshakable.